Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. So this one's a little bit late, but 2017 is a new year, which means that we've got a whole host of new games that we will be able to play. In this video, I'll be going over the ones that I am particularly interested in and, well, excited for. Of course, I don't recommend pre-ordering games until you've read a review, and that's what I'll be following myself, but let's just get right into the list with Mount & Blade 2. Okay. Every time I look at Mount & Blade Warband, the predecessor to Mount & Blade 2 on Steam, I'm shocked at how many hours I've actually put into it. I love the freedom that this franchise gives to players, the kinds of RP that it allows, and as well as, of course, its really deep strategy. It really does shine as a role-playing game in the traditional sense as well. I also think that its death and defeat penalties genuinely cause a really compelling sense of stress and worry due to how personal the stakes felt, but also, a really powerful sense of satisfaction when you did well. Overall, its progression loop was great, and it was backed up by some excellent mod support. Mount & Blade 2 looks like it just wants to do something similar, but with more depth in the mechanics, a better scale, better production qualities, and just, a hell of a lot more polish. The original game is a bit ropey. If they manage to recapture the gameplay and the sort of good qualities of Warband, and then make improvements on top of that, I'll be terrifically happy, and hell, it might even be one of my top games in this year. Now, this game certainly isn't the prettiest thing ever, but at the end of the day, do you really give a damn when you're in the middle of a siege battle with hundreds of people that completely trumps anything that a AAA studio has actually managed to produce? No, you don't care. And also, I'm looking at you, Lord of the Rings Conquest. You promised so much and underdelivered. Astoundingly. Okay, so next on the list is Eco. So one day my game dev partner was looking at games around the internet and stumbled across this odd little game called Eco. Now, I saw it and I thought, oh, this is just Minecraft or something, right? But I was completely blown away when I actually found out about the scale of the game and what it's actually setting out to do. So you're dropped on a fresh planet, and there is some sort of kind of impending doom, like an asteroid impact, stuff like that. And what you have to do is build from scratch your civilization up on this planet, while at the same time not being so environmentally destructive that you get yourself killed. So you need to strike this balance between being industrial, being careful about things. If you're, too over-industrial, then you'll end up rendering the planet uninhabitable long before the asteroid comes. So it seems like this really interesting and fun balancing act, but admittedly it is a very, very ambitious game. What I will say is that it does look like a unique twist on something that really Minecraft was lacking. Minecraft survival was compelling for the first 15 minutes, but then all of the goals and stakes completely disappear beyond just creativity. So it seems like this is an interesting layer of game mechanics that's sort of put onto that kind of game. Next, of course, we've got Mass Effect Andromeda. I'm nervously excited for this game. I love the original Mass Effect trilogy, even though I do, of course, have reservations about the ending. Naturally, though, this does mean I'm dead excited for the next installment, especially since they do seem to be trying to really push the boat in terms of the sense of scale that they're going for. However, this comes with a lot of worry for me. I would hate it if this game was anything like Dragon Age Inquisition. Dragon Age Inquisition was an overly bloated game with lots of low-quality quests, poor gameplay, bad voice acting, and bad writing. Why is that? Well, they made a game that was big for the sense of it being big, this massive open-world game. Who actually needed that? We wanted good quality content. Didn't really have that. While the number of hours that it would take to complete Dragon Age Inquisition were massive, those hours were far lower quality than, say, Dragon Age 1. So as much as exploring new planets in the new version of the Mako rover seems really cool to me, I can't shake the worry that they are going to suffer from some of the same problems of the studio's previous title. Next, we've got a bit of a departure for me. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Never played a 3D Zelda game. In fact, the only Zelda game that I previously have played was Link to the Past on the Game Boy Advance. So from what I've seen of the trailers, it actually does look like quite a step up in ambition. Its combat system looks quite cool indeed. And, as always, the art style I think is extremely strong. The music seems to be wonderful as well. Like Mass Effect Andromeda, I'm worried that it will have some kind of scope creep in its world, which will mean that the quality of the content will be low, even though the world is ginormous. But I still am quite excited for it overall. So next we've got a bit of a strange one, Halo Wars 2. Now I played the original Halo Wars in the position of being a semi-hardcore fan of PC RTS, but also a massive fan of the Halo franchise on my Xbox, as many people in my generation kind of were. So when Halo Wars came out, all my console friends thought, wow, this is great. And I thought, wow, this is absolutely terrible. This is a bastardization of what real-time strategy is. But then I found out Halo Wars 2 is actually coming out on PC. And I'm really keen to see if they can make a proper PC strategy game in one of my favorite gaming IPs ever. Pretty much as simple as that. There's a large chance it could be terrible, but I'm really anticipated. I'm really excited to see if they actually do manage to pull it off. Next, we've got For Honor. So I really enjoy medieval combat games like Chivalry, and this seems to be a compelling enough addition to that genre. It's a lot more stylized than a lot of those games. It's got samurai against European knights, against Vikings, and I think that could be pretty cool for gameplay variety, as really for me, historical accuracy is it's a take it or leave it thing. The general setup is that each team has a few kind of human players and then there's a bunch of AI creeps, so you can cleave through the AI kind of like in Dynasty Warriors, but the fights against other players are more based on a sort of a directional block parry system with some additional abilities that kind of reminds me of parts of what Mount & Blade ended up starting, then also a bit of War of the Roses and Chivalry. Overall, it seems like it could be a blast, but I'm worried about the scope and sort of quantity of content, as is often the case with new AAA games. Next, we've got Everspace. So this is a roguelike where you're going through space in a fighter ship. I love space combat games. I like roguelikes, so this pretty much is right up my alley, especially since it's going to have VR support. Currently, I think the cockpit-based games fit most VR setups the best, so I'm really excited just to see if there's like a really good, fun space game that is more fleshed out than the, unfortunately, rather shallow Valkyrie. Next, we've got Lawbreakers. This is the first title from Cliff Bleszinski's new studio. It's a hero-based shooter, which, yeah, I mean, it does drop some Overwatch comparisons, but everyone who I've seen or, heard of playing at a trade show says that it doesn't really feel like Overwatch to play, including TB, who I actually do trust quite a bit when it comes to shooters. I love shooters, particularly class-based ones. I think they can be more strategically compelling, sort of in the long run. We'll have to see how it is when it releases, but right now I'm pretty excited. If it can be similar to Overwatch, but with just kind of with a different feel, I guess, slightly more old school feel, perhaps, then yeah, I could be really, really into how it plays. After that, we've got another strategy game. This one's Dreadnought. So I mentioned how much I like space combat earlier when I was talking about Everspace. Dreadnought, though, is attempting to do something like that, but on a really, really ginormous scale. If you ever watched something like Battlestar Galactica, which, by the way, you should, especially if you're not a science fiction fan, but then you'll know kind of how strong the fantasy is of massive ships fighting each other. You're essentially doing naval combat, but, with more depth, a larger toolkit, and another axis of movement. The game looks graphically quite stunning, I think, as well, and the gameplay seems to hold up quite well from a lot of what I've heard. It's class-based, so, each ship has got its own strengths and weaknesses. I think that, again, that's naturally good for team play. Yeah, I'm just really interested in a kind of a slower-paced, more tactical game that allows for really strong teamwork, that doesn't have a massive Twitch skill requirement. Once again, I'm worried about how much content it will have, but for right now, I'm very interested in it. Next, we've got Dawn of War 3. I love Dawn of War 1. I didn't really like Dawn of War 2 because the smaller squad focus didn't really work for me. From what I've seen, though, the third entry in this really quite well-regarded RTS series seems to be striking a balance between Dawn of War 1 and 2. And next, we've got The Last of Us Part 2. This is by far the game that I'm most excited for this year. The Last of Us was my favorite game of that console generation. It was also, something that generally is above almost all of the PC games that I played as well. It pushed the boundaries of storytelling in the medium of video games. It created a really tense, scrappy combat system that perfectly fit the world that it was set in. Most importantly of all, though, they created compelling characters which, thanks to some of the best writing and voice acting that the industry has ever seen, tell their story almost perfectly. Joel and Ellie are by far my sort of favorite pair of characters in gaming. Completely. Yes, even better than all those mascot characters that people love as well. I cannot wait to see where their story goes next overall. You will need to own a PlayStation, and you have to put up with 30 FPS and controller aiming. Not a fan of that, but what I would say is that Naughty Dog do a tremendous job of making it feel playable. They deliver the best 30 frames per second I've ever seen on console. Sounds odd to say, but it never dips, it never stutters, their controls are very well designed, and overall it is very playable in spite of that. So even if you're a diehard PC-only person, you really owe it to yourself to give The Last of Us, and hopefully The Last of Us 2, a fair shot, because they truly are tremendous games, and narratively, they're stronger than most of like the great movies that people would think about when they think of like strong, emotionally compelling storytelling. And it's great to see that that's actually being done in video games. But that's it for me. That's what I'm interested in this year. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.